Welcome to another episode of the Sustainability Happy Hour. I'm one of your co-hosts, Pat Keys, and this is
Micah Bennett. I'm the communications specialist over at the School of Global Environmental Sustainability.
I think we agreed that we are not saying the full title because that's, what is it?
Well, we got
14 syllables?
It's 17. It's 17 of those.
Yeah,
but we have to say it once, right? On first reference.
On first reference. So school, oh wait, I can't say it anymore because that's the first reference. So now SoGES.
Yep, that's us.
Okay, SoGES. Okay, Micah always starts by telling everybody who she is and what like her role at SoGES, and I never say it. I'm just like, I'm a guy at SoGES.
What is your role at SoGES, Pat?
I'm lead scientist, but I don't really know what that means, aside from the fact that I do a lot of science stuff.
Makes
but
sense.
more importantly, fun fact time.
Yeah.
Okay,
you got
you go
one?
first.
You gonna go? Oh, you want me to
you
go
go first. I'm
All
gonna
right.
go on the fly.
All right. So my fun fact, school is just around the corner. Many students are getting ready to come back on campus. And my fun fact is that for the first time in a few years, I am going to be taking a course. I'm very excited. I'm going to be taking FW 556, which is the Leopold Ethic for Wildlife and Land through CSU Online. Because our fabulous employer has like an employee study privilege. So I get to take this as part of my job, which is really cool.
So do you know what, like, what kind of class is it going to be? Is it going to be like tests and stuff, or?
I'm not sure. It's not published yet on Canvas. So I'm back on the Canvas, the online learning module thing that students use. I used that back when I was an undergrad. So I'm back on it. My course is not published yet, so I can't see anything, but I'm pretty sure it's like probably readings and then maybe recorded lectures and like probably discussions on like online discussion boards and maybe some tests. I don't know. I haven't taken a test in a long time. We'll see if I remember how to do it. Oh, Pat, you're muted.
I hope you have a good time.
Thank you. I'm excited to learn. What is your fun fact?
I know I have to say, like, fall is my favorite season of the year for no other reason because it's the start of school. Mm-hmm. And in that spirit, I have a plaque here. This is I'll hold it up. The Robert Poucher Physics Award.
Wow.
Which I was awarded in high school. This is going to come back later on in the show. We're gonna talk about this one. But I like to talk about that in part because it's the only physics class I've ever taken. So whenever there's any question about
you won at
physics.
I
won. But so whenever there's any question about physics, I'm always like, well, I don't know about you, but I have the Robert Poucher Physics Award.
That's a nice plaque.
It's a nice plaque. It's pretty small, but I mean, it's a nice plaque. And I also like to joke that my brother got it, and he's 2 years older than me, and he knew like way more physics than I did. Mm. So I sort of think that like the teacher sort of just like was like,
same last name.
Same last name.
Sure, you're good.
So that's my fun fact. I'm a recipient of the Robert Poucher Physics Award. The year, we won't talk about the year because that's going to date me, and I already feel like an old man.
Can't have that.
Can't have that. Okay.
All right. Let's move on.
Moving on to important things.
Some rapid fire news headlines, right? I've got a number of stories. I scoured the internet and looked for interesting things that I thought our audience, our millions of viewers might want to know. So first headline, this is from NBC News. Canada's last fully intact Arctic ice shelf collapses. The last fully intact ice shelf in the Canadian Arctic has collapsed, losing more than 40% of its area in just 2 days at the end of July. The Milne ice shelf is at the fringe of Ellesmere Island in the sparsely populated northern Canadian territory of Nunavut. So that is unfortunate. But that's a big headline. That was all over the place, so I figured we better include that one. Next headline, this is also from NBC News. Colorado, the state in which we are currently residing, it says the entire state is in the midst of a widespread drought. Every part of our state is presently under drought or abnormally dry conditions for the first time in nearly a decade, according to the National Drought Mitigation Center. Experts say that the drought conditions, which are forecasted to last into the fall, significantly raise the risk of wildfires and crop losses. So we are 2 for 2 in the depressing news category. And let's see if we can go 3 for 3. US hurricane experts predict extremely active storm season. NOAA's Climate Prediction Center said that there could be up to 25 storms which have sustained winds of 39 miles per hour or greater. Storms that hit that threshold get a name. And in a normal year, there's usually 2 storms before August, which are named. And this year there have already been 9, and they're predicting that there's going to be 25.
And there's actually an interesting fact is that there's a really big or a significant team here at CSU that does a lot of the storm prediction. And so a lot of the kind of numbers of forecasted storms, at least some of the estimates are coming out of Colorado State.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Actually, the department that we're going to hear more about later on.
Oh, I picked a good story then. All right, here's one that I heard it somewhere and I was like, is that a joke? What's going on? It's the mystery seeds. People are getting seeds in the mail from they're not expecting seeds. So this is from NPR. Do not plant these. Officials are investigating mystery seeds sent by mail. In recent days, officials from more than 24 states have warned residents about unsolicited seed packages that appear to be coming from China. Now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Department of Homeland Security are investigating the mysterious case of unsolicited seeds. And what the concern is that they could be invasive species, right? So if you get a packet of seeds in the mail, don't just plant them because it might be fun, because you don't know where they came from. You don't know if they could wreak havoc on the ecosystem, because invasive species can wreak havoc on the environment, displace and destroy native plants and insects, and severely damage crops. USDA spokesperson Celia Sequeira suggests that, it's probably not foreign terrorists trying to dismantle our democracy with invasive species, but is more likely a brushing scam, which is something to do with online commerce. It's where an online seller sends something unsolicited and then writes glowing reviews purporting to be written by the would-be customers. So in all likelihood, it's someone trying to get more likes on Yelp.
That's bizarre.
But you still shouldn't plant them or eat them.
Well, what's crazy is I'm tilting my hand right now. I follow a lot of ag people on Twitter. No big deal.
Egg.
And egg.
I'm from Wisconsin. We say egg.
And I saw this the past couple of weeks. People would be like, "Oh, I got these mystery seeds in the mail. I'm not sure if I'm going to plant them." And some of the people did plant them because they're like, "Well,
let's see what they grow
I'm curious."
Into. Right.
And then other people were like, "Oh my God, don't plant the seeds." That's interesting that it's as widespread as that. I thought that was a very niche. Anyway.
And then we're going to end on a slightly
positive note.
Hopeful news story.
Yeah.
This one is also from NPR. The Navajo Nation seized farming renaissance during coronavirus pandemic. So a couple weeks or months ago, I think we were talking about how the Navajo Nation has gotten, it had one of the highest coronavirus infection rates. And actually part of that, I think this was on our water episode, was that they have a lack of running water, which makes it hard to wash your hands for 20 seconds like you're supposed to. But it looks like they have gone from that to having a steady decline in cases. And as part of sort of this positive trend, they are seeing more and more people getting interested in farming because they're trying to become self-sufficient so that they don't have to travel outside the Navajo Nation for necessities. And so it says that there's been a surge in interest. Seeds were hard to come by. They flew off the shelves just as fast as toilet paper did at the beginning of the pandemic. And that this renewed interest comes 5 years after many people on the reservation abandoned farming because of I believe it was the Animas River spill. There was an EPA crew investigating a mine in Colorado, and it accidentally unleashed 3 million gallons of metal-contaminated waste into the Southwest River system. So that area has now been deemed a Superfund, And Pat, remind me what that means.
So a Superfund site, long story short, is a place. It's essentially it's a designation for a location that has extraordinary pollution problems. And so there's a lot of Superfund sites along coastal areas because there's a lot of port facilities there, shipping and other stuff where you have a lot of essentially preservative materials that have leached into the soil, leading to kind of long-term, really difficult to deal with pollution problems. And so a Superfund site, like in this context, it's going to be really difficult to mitigate some of these effects because now they're spread out over an enormous area. Gotcha.
And yet it looks like right in the face of this, in the face of still having to combat this contaminated water, from this article was that because there's this renaissance in farming, right, there's some more action about getting this taken care of because clean water is going to be really important as they sort of notch up their farming efforts.
Absolutely, yeah. If this sticks around like this uptick in how they're producing food, I mean, but that would also be kind of a good thing. It's another way to exert pressure on the EPA and other regulatory bodies to kind of do what they're supposed to do from a policy perspective.
So yeah, that's our news rundown.
All right. Okay, so now we have an illustrious guest. I should have mentioned who our illustrious guest is at the beginning of the show. And it's going to be Professor Elizabeth Barnes from the Department of Atmospheric Science. Are you ready to go? Okay, we'll see if this works. Add to stream. Here we are. Sound test.
Hey, I'm here. I'm Libby.
Good sound.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so Elizabeth Libby Barnes, how would you like people to refer to you today?
On papers, I'm Elizabeth, but the only people that call me Elizabeth are my parents when I'm in trouble. So please refer to me as Libby.
All right, unless your mom or dad shows up and you're in trouble, right?
That's right. In which case, everyone will know.
Totally possible.
Yeah.
Are they watching our live stream right now?
Who knows?
They definitely are, I bet. So I should say, before we proceed too far along, that I've known Elizabeth Libby Barnes for longer than I've known probably anyone else here at CSU, right?
Probably.
It's because we're married. So we were gonna have like stand side by side here.
Because you are currently in the same building, right?
We're currently in the same building. We're definitely in the same building.
One of my fun facts was going to be that, that's my computer behind him, but yes.
So you share an office space.
Yeah.
Nice.
We do. It's not as bad as it. Well, I don't think it's as bad as it could be, but maybe somebody else has a different opinion. Silent, plead the fifth. Oh, that's fine. Exactly. That's fine. But okay, so let's go back to the fun fact of the Robert Poucher Physics Award. No big deal. Good shot there.
Do I get a chance just when I get to share my fun fact?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Micah shared about going back to school and you shared this award. So I thought I'd sort of go with the school theme, but in the opposite direction. So you won an award. I was going to say my fun fact is in college, I had a 3-hour true false, in essence, advanced calc test that I failed.
False?
Yes.
That sounds really boring.
And I failed. So of all the tests I've ever failed, I failed a 3-hour true false math test. Sort of to balance out Pat's amazing physics award there.
Part of the joke is that the person that I talked to about this is you. and it's and you have a degree in physics.
I do.
And you literally study climate physics.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so without further ado, we should probably talk about you're a professor in the Department of Atmospheric Science. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what that actually means. And if you have any questions out there, I think, what is it? I think we're up to 2 trillion viewers at this point. So among the 2 trillion viewers, is that what the ticker is up to?
Yep.
if you have a question, go ahead and throw it in, and we'll see if we can stump Professor Barnes over here.
Well, I already shared failing that exam. I don't know if we need to fail again today. But
failure is how you learn.
Is that how that works?
That's what they kept telling me.
Yeah, so I'm an associate professor in atmospheric science. Pat asked, what's that? What is that about, or what's that like? I will say one thing that makes atmospheric science a lot of fun is it was really my way of saying I can't decide exactly what I want to do. So what field sort of lets me do just about anything in the earth sciences. And so I can study the land surface. I can study people, because people obviously are interacting with our climate every day. It's climate change. I can study ice. I can study space and space weather, because that's clearly going to be very important. I actually have a graduate student coming in to my group who's thought quite a bit about the ionosphere and is now slowly moving down further into the atmosphere towards the surface of the Earth. We get to think about the sun. Turns out there's a lot of dynamics on the Earth, in the Earth's atmosphere, that are related to the dynamics going on Jupiter. So I sort of got to do a bit of everything, thinking about exoplanets. You might want to know, could life be there? What's the weather like?
Yes, so, I want to know that.
Yeah, me too, actually. But so in terms of the topics, you think sometimes people just think about weather forecasting, or climate change, but it's so much more than that, which is why I'm never bored.
So, but do you have you must have like a specific area that you zoom in on, because like you just said, like you can study almost anything related to the Earth system. So if you had to say, like, kind of, this is where you've planted your flag for how you're looking at this whole Earth system, or broader than that, what would you say it is?
Yeah, so I started off doing, it's really weird answering you with these questions, since you know almost as well as I do what I do, but
just pretend you're talking to me instead.
Yeah, okay. So Micah, let me tell you. So yeah, I largely fall under the category of a climate dynamicist. So I study the fluid motions of the atmosphere. That's what I got my degree in, my doctorate, and now my work has largely started focusing also on the statistical tools and the computer science tools we use to analyze the data to say things about the atmosphere or the climate system. So in that sense, I'm starting to really have multiple hats, both a climate scientist and as well as sort of a data scientist, if you will.
Sorry, I muted myself. I was going to say, though,
I also hit a button.
Can you just said a phrase that I bet a lot of people actually don't know what it means, which is a climate scientist. I think people have a sense of what that means, right? It's the people that, get, I don't know, Robert Poucher Physics Awards or something like that. But for data scientists, what is data science? So you said that phrase just in passing just now.
Yeah, so I'm certain if we all go on Wikipedia this very moment and then look it up, there will be an official definition. I've been using data scientist recently because it's sort of a hot phrase. People see it in the media and in the news. But the general idea is someone that knows how to take a lot of data and extract information from it. I would argue almost every scientist is by default a data scientist, because our job is to take data and extract information from it. The term data scientist is a bit typically broader in that sometimes the people doing data science aren't scientists or don't actually understand the data they're working with, but they're trying to make, say, particular plots or graphs to learn new information. So like a data scientist could be somebody that works for a company to figure out which advertisements, scheme or color scheme is best to get people to buy their product, as well as a climate scientist thinking about the climate system. So we really use statistical methods and machine learning methods to understand the world around us.
And what is machine learning, right? I'm picturing like robots and artificial intelligence, but I think that's maybe not what you're talking about.
So these are all umbrellas within umbrellas. I think if that's what you picture, it's fine with me because it looks pretty cool. But no, on a daily basis, I'm not talking to robots. So machine learning is
Yet.
typically, yet, that's right. It's terrifying. So I would typically think of machine learning as new tools that we have merging computer science and statistics and big data. So any method that generally falls into that category could somehow be described as machine learning. For example, back in math class in middle or high school, when you took algebra, at one point people had to fit a line through a bunch of points. Most everybody's fit a line. Yes.
I remember that.
I could make an argument that you did machine learning. Now, the learning wasn't very hard. The line you could probably
say that.
Yeah, you could have probably.
For
my calculator did it for me. So and you could by eye figure out where that line went through that cloud of points. But the concept is you're using data and finding methods to get information from that data.
Gotcha. I'm still going to think of it as robots.
Please. I would love that.
Okay.
So that's a perfect segue, this conversation about machine learning, because you just had a paper come out. I think it was the preprint was published, last week?
Sure. Yes, that sounds about right.
Sure, last week. And can you tell, I'm gonna throw this up here on the screen let's see here. Okay, so it's in the journal James, which is a very bespoke name for a journal, but maybe you could just unpack what this is about. I mean, it sounds awesome, I think, but maybe you could explain a little bit about what you've done here.
You better think more than just I think, since you just. I'm
trying to pretend like I haven't heard about this and the lamentations about this paper for the past few years. So.
Yeah, that's right. How about, so instead of trying to somehow give you the long-winded version, even when I try to be short and sweet, I'll go through the title and we'll unpack the title. How's that sound? And if we can do that successfully, then you've get the gist. So the title's Indicator Patterns of Forced Change Learned by an Artificial Neural Network. So start at the end. Artificial neural network, again, picture Micah's robot. But really
an artificial brain that has like lots of glimmering kind of light blue kind of synthetic thing, right? That's what an artificial neural network is, right?
If only it was really like that, right? So so an artificial neural network is just one of these algorithms to fit a line. Instead of a line, though, we're going to fit a curvy line instead of a straight one. That's the tool to do it. So not quite as exciting as the flashing blue lights. So we're going to use this tool. And the first part of the title, Indicator Patterns of Forced Change. Well, let's get to forced change. So what we're really saying here is climate change. Why we don't have the phrase climate change, if you want to know, is actually because we're using climate models. And climate models have more than just anthropogenic CO2 put into them. They have things like the fact that the sun goes through a solar cycle. They have volcanic eruptions going off in them. And at the end of the day, volcanic eruptions, we're not going to really, at least right now, blame on people. And so by forced change, we're really looking for anything that's driving our climate system to change what it's doing, be it CO2, aerosols, ozone depletion and recovery in the southern hemisphere, or the solar cycle. So we're trying to look for patterns of change in the climate system using this robotic blue flashing light tool. And the whole idea of indicator patterns is saying, on any given day, the way we started this problem is I thought, if on any given day, if my grandma had gone outside and just looked at the world as it was and asked, can I see climate change? Can I see forced change? The question was, could she ever answer yes or no? And so we wanted to task this artificial neural network with the question, can you see climate change in any given year? And so we're using this tool to look for patterns or indicators of change in maps of any given year. So you can think of the year you were born. Can the AI see climate change in that one year? And the answer is yes, or else we probably would not have had a paper. So that's there you go. That's just the title.
Yeah. So I guess can you sum up it in terms of did you look at, is this about climate change at all? Or is it really just about, can we use this tool, this kind of effective method for identifying when something has changed in a really crazy wobbly system? Which part of the climate system were you really zooming in on to understand whether or not you can use this tool to understand those changes?
Yeah, so in this paper, we're just looking at temperature. Is that your question? Yep, and precipitation, which temperature, if you think about it, can't be that hard. I mean, we know the temperature is going up. We see it. So if we can do it, hopefully our robot is just as good, if not better. So we start with temperature because that's pretty easy. And then we go to precipitation, which is much harder. And we do see global patterns. But you might say, well, there's so many other things to look at. Why just temperature or just precipitation? And two members in my group, Jamin Rader, a graduate student, and Zach Labe, who I believe was recently a speaker on your happy hour, are both
an esteemed guest.
Yes,
Esteemed guest is the phrase you're looking for.
He's a postdoc that recently joined my group, and they are both looking at this type of problem for more interesting aspects of the climate system than just temperature and precipitation. Okay,
so what do you think this seems like a big deal to me. So I think reading, well, I feel like there's a lot of headlines like this climate thing happens or this climate science happens or blah, blah, blah. Every week there's a headline of some sort about some climate science related topic. But how much of a game changer is this in terms of looking forward, understanding climate change? Because that's what everybody's chasing right now is how can we better understand what the future is going to look like? What aspects of climate models can we trust? Is this a game changer for thinking about climate change models and simulations in that way?
I'm going to start off first by answering no. I don't think this one paper is a game changer in that sense, because actually I think what we do in this paper can be done with other methods, maybe not as well, but it can be done okay with other methods. So in that sense, it's sort of, small steps forward in science. The part that I think is game changing is I'm really excited about the idea. And to get the idea down, we have to have an example of how it can be used. And that example has to be written in a language that my community will understand, not in the language of a computer scientist where it just goes straight over our heads. So what I'm most excited about this paper is it's taken an idea from another field, brought it here, tried to put it into a language that climate scientists understand and the way they speak, and apply it to a problem climate scientists think is important and interesting. Because of that, my biggest hope with this particular paper is that someone else out there, smarter and with even better ideas is going to see that and go, wow, now if we do it this way, now we're going to change the field. And maybe that doesn't sound that exciting, but for me, I think if you will, that's it's an assist. I'm happy to go down with an assist in this case. I think that's a big success.
And to use an analogy that you're comfortable with, I'm sure. So you want to be the butterfly flapping its wings
yikes.
To cause a hurricane elsewhere, right?
No. So the problem with that is I think it would be really hard to ever attribute it to the butterfly. Whereas this case, I'd more like to be the obvious assist, lobbing the ball for the dunk. It'd be great if it could be traced back to me.
I understand that's a sports reference.
And my group.
That's a sports reference?
Yes, sports ball.
Okay, sports ball.
Yeah.
Okay, and just so, so you're aware that you might inspire people on this broadcast. I can't keep track of how many viewers we have. In fact, one of our viewers, Craig Starger, our viewers probably broke the internet at this point. So just to be clear, if we do break the internet, sorry, not sorry, because you're having a very enjoyable time. Okay, let's see here. Let's just pivot a little bit. Is that okay, Micah? Away from flashing shimmery blue lights in a synthetic brain?
Yeah.
So climate change is something everybody talks about. And I feel like everybody now, if you're a scientist, it's like the hot thing to be like, I'm a climate scientist. When you study something that's related to something that's related to something that's related to climate change. And so as an actual climate scientist, how do you see your role? Like you literally study the atmosphere, right? And somebody might call me a climate scientist, which, you know, is offensive to people that you hang out with. But I mean, I think it's not a problem, but it's a challenge because so many people want to claim that mantle of being like, I'm a climate scientist. So I guess as an educator, as a scientist, as a researcher, as a mentor, how do you navigate that? Because do you feel like you have a responsibility to like society now in a different way that you used to have? Or that maybe climate scientists would have had, say, 30 years ago? Now, is there a different responsibility? Should we pivot?
No, I'm thinking.
You want to talk about something else?
No. I'll say first, I've noticed a lot of people calling themselves climate scientists. At first, it bothered me a little bit, but then I realized, you know what? The more the merrier. There are so many different people studying so many different things. If the word climate is getting out there in a good light, as a good word, then I'm behind it. And when I say I'm a climate scientist, I just need to follow it up with I study the dynamics of the climate system, which sounds very different than I study migration of people from mega cities on the coast or something.
There you go.
Which is related to climate change,
Absolutely.
But isn't necessarily climate science.
No, but I like that. I like that perspective where you sort of say, let's make the tent bigger. There's no reason to make the tent smaller. You know, if other people are studying, even if it's climate impacts or adaptation, you can kind of make the tent bigger to accommodate more people. You can still do like your legit dynamics, but you know, you don't have to be as restrictive. That's a nice way to think about it.
She's a team player.
Team player.
Right. Remember?
Getting the assists.
Yeah. And I think the other thing in terms of responsibility, at least for me, I feel more and more that a lot of the climate change science, a lot of the big picture stuff is done. We know it's happening. It's here. It's us, all of that. And so to me, there's so much work to be done beyond just what someone called a climate scientist needs to do. The policy side of things is just so huge that I don't, if it means I don't want everybody in the world looking at the climate dynamicists and saying, solve our problem. That's certainly not what I was trained to do, nor what my brain was best at. So in that sense, whatever we need to call people climate somethings to bring about a change is fine with me.
I have a question.
That's it.
This is maybe adjacent tangential, but when did we stop calling it global warming and start calling it climate change? And when and why? And does that affect, or is that more of a communication semantics thing? And that's why I'm interested in it.
No. That's I don't know. I would say global warming is very rarely used by the climate scientists.
Right.
I'll use global warming typically if I'm talking to the broader community, because that's the word that maybe shows up in the headlines. But typically climate change is the phrase that's used. And that's because, I will tell you why I prefer climate change rather than tell you why the community does. And one of the reasons is because there's a lot more than just temperature that could change. And global warming, although the biggest signal here is temperatures going up, there's a lot of other things going on too. And that's why I like the phrase climate change, because it doesn't presuppose that those don't matter. Yeah. I'm sure there are people listening that know the answer better to that than I do.
I feel like the change happened in the aughts a little bit, like it pivoted away from that, like in the early 2000s, that the phrasing changed a little bit. Although, to be fair, the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, has been the UNFCCC since its inception, which is a lot longer. And so it's been called climate change for a while, but I wonder if global warming early on was sort of like, this is a way we can communicate it to a lot of people. And then it was like, that's not really adequate to contain all of the change that's actually going to unfold.
They kind of backfired in a way where people are like, no, it was really cold this year.
Exactly right. Showing like one of those books about climate change in the snow.
Right.
I wish I had it queued up right now. There's a really good clip from the old Daily Show about this. where I think it was Stephen Colbert was panicking because it was dark out. And then Jon Stewart said, "Is it night?" And he said, "Yes." And then it's like, wait a little bit longer and it won't be dark out anymore. It was an analogy for snow, even though climate change is happening. Anyway, okay, so we're going to totally take a turn now. What is the favorite part? What is your favorite part of your job as a professor? You're teaching a topic, climate dynamics. You're teaching other probably courses. Presumably you teach climate dynamics if you're a climate dynamicist. But then you're in the Department of Atmospheric Science. So that means you do research, you mentor, you teach. Can you say if you have like a favorite part or one of your favorite parts of your job?
Can I say two? Or are you really stuck on one?
What do you think, Micah? Two?
I'll allow it.
She'll allow it.
Okay. I love writing code, so playing with data. That's my personal, why I'm in science. I love it. I love bugs because then there's a puzzle to solve and you have to go find the problem and there's an answer.
Clear, not real bugs.
No, definitely not real bugs. I'm not that kind of scientist.
Okay,
computer, software bugs. Thank you. And so that's my sort of very personal, antisocial side. And then my second one that I just love, I love mentoring. I love working with my group. I get to choose the group in part. They also have to choose me, obviously. But so I get to surround myself with people I want to hang out with. And then we get to talk about a thing that I love to talk about. And then we get to do it together. How can you not get better than that? And every once in a while, they're willing to sit and listen to me, wax poetic about some life lesson. And then, it's just great.
It's a captive audience. Do they really have a choice?
Do they really have a choice? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's why I love my job.
Tell us in the comments. If you're watching right now, tell us in the comments whether or not that's... Okay, that's a really nice answer. That's cool. I think it's easy for people who attend university and don't see the research side, forget that these people that are educating them also do research, also have this other aspect of their job. So that's cool that you started with the coding thing. Like, this is what you love to do. You love to write computer code, to solve problems, that sort of thing. It's nice. I hope people can see that and be like, they're more than just the person who's, right now on their Zoom lecture, or whatever platform you use. I'm not trying to advertise for Zoom.
I know everyone's like, "Oh, let's get on a Zoom." I'm like, actually, we're not actually on a Zoom. We're on a different platform.
It's like Band-Aid at this point.
It is.
It's not a Band-Aid. It's a bandage. You're using Johnson & Johnson's
Kleenex. It's a Kleenex.
Kleenex.
Right? Yeah.
Or
it's a Zoom code.
Facial tissue.
Can we just? I'm not going to name the other names of the companies, but they all totally fell down on the job, right? Some of these companies, we don't need to name names, have been around for so long, and it's now it's we don't even think about them.
You had one job.
You had one job. You had a monopoly for decades, I feel like, and it just never. Anyway, okay.
Libby, do you teach undergrads and graduates, or?
I only teach graduate students. What's special about here, it's our department at CSU. So I do teach every semester, but again, it's with these graduate students that have already chosen atmospheric science for a degree. Gotcha. their next degree. Yeah.
Gotcha. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's sort of a rare opportunity to have somebody who is an expert in. Where do you think this is going? You don't even know.
I don't know, but I'm dreading it already. Okay.
That's fair. Hey, we've got a comment. Hold on. Interruption. I love bugs too. Thank you, Monica.
Thanks, Monica. Different kind of bugs, but you can still
different kind of bugs or same bugs. I think Monica's probably talking about legit bugs, really small ones.
I'm glad she wants to study those, so
that's
I can
right.
study that.
Everybody needs to study different things. Okay, so I asked you already, did you think that this kind of machine learning stuff is going to be the next big thing in climate science?
Well, no. You asked me if my paper was the next big thing.
Oh, I sort of meant, do you think machine learning is going to be the next big thing?
Oh, I think it is.
Oh, really? Let's go back to that then. I'm curious.
Yeah,
So, because some people think, oh, it's just a fancy new method. It's not going to actually change the game. Why do you think this could change the game and how we understand the climate system?
Well, I think that it's making people think differently. Whether they actually in the end use it for the big advances, it is making scientists who have been doing their science the same way for 70 years or, whatever, passing it on to their graduate students who pass it on to theirs. It's making everybody go, whoa, we could think about this totally differently. And I think that's where exciting advances come from. That's first. Second, I think a big thing in climate is climate modeling. We need to continue to try and do a better and better job at simulating how the world works and how the climate system interacts. And we've been stuck and stagnated for a while, I think, generally. Things are getting better, but slowly. And it may fail, but let's have it fail spectacularly. Let's do something big and have it explode in our faces rather than these tiny little steps forward that in 200 years maybe will have made a few advances. So I know I can say that, and there are many that would then say climate change is not something that should be exploding in our faces, Libby. This is right?
It kind of is already.
True. Yeah, and I guess I'm sort of the innovation, like, let's go big or go home. And I think these tools can maybe do that. I will say in the media and when you talk about machine learning, people try and sell it as just here, take some machine learning and all your problems will be solved. And I in no way think that is the case. But as I said, I think it's shaking things up a bit. It's making everybody stop and say, why do we do it that way? And is there a better way? And I think that's always wonderful in any field.
Okay, that's a fantastic segue into, we're going to try and we're getting to the end of this show. So if you do have questions, throw them up here and we'll try and post them to Libby. But if you had one thing you could say to motivate people to pursue a direction in this way, so whether they're undergraduates, whether they're high school students, whether they're middle schoolers or K through 5 even, what would you say to try and, what do you think is most exciting? What energizes you to continue to study this question and inspire others to study the climate system?
Well, what to inspire them? What inspired me may not inspire others. As I said, mine is, okay. I don't want to be bored. Can you think of anything more complicated than the entire Earth system, outer space, geology, and people all interacting at the same time right now? I mean,
no, that's
maybe. Okay, biology.
I echo the sentiment of wah!
Oh yeah, biology just blows my mind.
Yeah, if we have a neuroscientist in the crowd, they're going to be like, the brain.
Okay, but I'm
no
saying,
offense, neuroscientists. I agree with you, also, sort of.
All 10 million of you, yeah.
So 10 million of it. I think we're up to some 1,000 million. That's a billion.
Okay.
Okay. No. All right.
Anyways,
but yeah. So I think that's what's got me excited. Is I'll never be bored. I think right now, if you're going to inspire really young kids, and it's not going to be climate change is depressing. So if it's not going to be that, the other is just the planetary atmospheres. That is a field that's only going to explode. And we have so few people that actually study atmospheric science in the context of different gravity and different compositions of the atmosphere. So if I were to encourage people that loved atmospheric science but wanted to be the next thing beyond climate change, I would say go study planetary atmospheres. People will be hungry for you.
You mean like the atmosphere of like Jupiter?
Or exoplanets, or how do we even ask the question of what atmospheres are like on other planets? What could they look like? Yeah. What happens when they're big or small or rotating fast or slow? Multiple suns, from different directions, moons. All these things play a role. So cool. I think there are a few out there. Don't get me wrong, but the number is very small. So that's where I think things should go.
That's great. Okay, so last question.
Space Force.
What's that? Space
Force.
That's perfect. Okay, that's not the last question. Okay, so the last question is, what's something during this pandemic? We're all doing this crazy thing where we're all working from home, and we didn't expect to be doing this for as long as we are. What's something that's positive that's happened to you that maybe you didn't expect, or just something good that's happened in the last number of days that we've been working from home?
So you want to end on a positive note, I take it.
I do want to end on a positive note.
Yeah. So my very personal positive, work related at least, has been that, this is going to sound really gooey, I guess, but how wonderful, the group I work with, we work together every day, and we've been able to now interact with each other in some ways more on Slack, for example, sitting there talking to each other about everything, getting to pop in and out of conversations when maybe I wouldn't have seen people for a few weeks. So that part's just been wonderful. Of course, makes me wish I could see them more often. But in that sense, I think I think I've been really optimistic that research and the graduate students are still working so hard to carry science forward, as people like me are struggling to get their children to eat their peas or whatever. And so I'm very hopeful that science marches on because these people are working so hard, no matter where they are. So that's been my positive take.
That's great.
Oh, yeah. That wasn't that gooey.
Okay.
but I love gooey things.
Okay.
Speaking of working from home and children, you two have offspring. So who's watching your kids right now?
That's a great question.
That's a good question.
Actually, that's why we have to wrap up here. So our kids are actually at a daycare down the street, and so they need to be picked up now. So either the host is leaving or the guest is leaving. So
or they'll just stay there. They'll be.
I'm
fine.
Staying here.
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, Mike is not going to go pick them up.
I'm not.
She's being clear about this. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a real pleasure to chat about climate science and everything else today. So without further ado, we're gonna take you out of the studio. Any last words?
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
Most welcome.
Yeah. All right, bye guys.
Bye. Thank you.
I'll see you in 2 minutes.
No, 2 minutes. Okay. Well, we just learned a lot about machine learning and climate science and other stuff.
We did. It was really interesting.
I actually do feel like I learned some stuff. Okay, so any last minute? We're a little bit over time, but any last minute announcements, SoGES announcements, that sort of thing?
I've got one SoGES announcement. We have recently produced a video to help undergraduate students declare the GES minor.
Is it on the website?
Yep, in the minor in global environmental sustainability. Our academic coordinator, Professor Dale Lockwood, has made a nice little video that will walk you through the minor course check sheet, how to pick your classes, how to get that email sent over to the registrar. And so if you are interested in declaring the GES minor, this is a nice place where you can find some quick information. It's about a 8-minute video with some fun motion graphics, courtesy of moi. And
no big deal.
No big deal. So yeah, go check that out at sustainability.colostate.edu/education-training.
And then you go to the education training tab here. You can pull down menu to the minor in GES.
Yep.
Then it's right there.
There it is.
I'm not going to click play because it'll probably be all laggy and stuff, and nobody wants to see that.
Don't do that.
But here it is. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, that's what I got for SoGES announcement. So.
All right, fantastic. I think we will be. I'm not sure which day we will be doing the next broadcast on.
Because with semester starting up, the schedule kind of changes.
Everything changes. So if you have questions, though, go ahead and subscribe to the email list.
Oh yeah, we have an email list.
We have an email list. We won't spam you. It's only going to be for updates about the next broadcast.
Yep.
And so, how do they find that? How do we find that?
You can find that by at the description underneath this video. There's going to be a link that I'll post, and you can find it on our Facebook page and elsewhere on our YouTube profile. Okay, cool. And so we'll update you then on that list about the next guest and the next showtime.
But with that, thanks a lot for joining us on this week's broadcast